Okay, so the term actually comes from sort of customization of Japanese cars, and it's been borrowed into pretty much predominantly the Linux space, but also Windows and Mac OS less commonly. And it basically refers to the aesthetic and functional customization of your desktop and your computer to sort of be exactly how you want it. The goal being to improve your workflow, to have a more minimal setup, to have something that looks a bit better or looks more like how you want it. It also extends to setting up hotkeys for your system and customizing individual applications. So my goal for this talk was kind of just to give you like a whirlwind tour of the Rising ecosystem and sort of show you what's possible and hopefully get you interested in what's quite a fun hobby, I think. For reference, there's a particular subreddit which called Unix porn, which don't let the name alarm you. It's quite safe generally, aside from lots of anime wallpapers. But that's a great reference material for seeing how other people have done it and what like the community is all about. And then my dot files, which sort of refers to the files that I've used to set up my entire system, are available at this link. I'll also have it on the last slide. So you'll see I've got some screenshots here, maybe a little bit hard to see, but of some Linux desktops that people have customized to sort of tune to their liking. And you can see like there's quite a variety. There's infinite possibilities as to what you can do. Yeah, really the world is your oyster when it comes to Linux. And that's kind of the reason why Rising on Linux is the main platform as opposed to Windows or Mac OS. So it's a bit harder to do that sort of thing. So here's Unix porn, the subreddit. You can see like this is just today's top posts. There's so much variety. I've found a few, let me maximize that, ones that are quite nice that I like, that are great for reference. On the subreddit, they also post all their dot files in the comments section usually, so you can see exactly how they did it. It's all open source, and there's some really advanced stuff that you can do, like animations, color customizations, customizing each individual application. You can see this person set up a launcher which is entirely mouse driven. That's pretty much entirely customized. Like you would not see that on a standard operating system ever, something like that. More customizations. Yeah, so you can get a sense of the variety. Okay, so what is it about Linux that makes it so customizable and so powerful and so sort of fine-tunable? So there's a few different components that you'll commonly see across Linux desktops. The first one is sort of the main one that everything is based upon. That's the display server. There's pretty much two in existence that everybody uses. There's Xorg, which is the one I happen to be using at the moment, which is sort of the old legacy mature one. And then there's Wayland, which is a little bit newer, relatively speaking, that has more modern features, but there's sometimes you have to weigh up compatibility issues with different softwares. So you have to sort of pick that one, pick which one you choose accordingly. There's also your desktop environment. So those of you who have used Linux before will probably be familiar with some of these. For example, the default Ubuntu desktop experience comes with GNOME. There's also like Kubuntu, which is the KDE version of Ubuntu. There's Xubuntu, which is XFCE on Ubuntu. The desktop environment is basically your entire desktop experience, and it bundles a whole bunch of extra applications together, which have been sort of configured to work together. So there's XFCE, Mate, there's a whole bunch of options. But in terms of Rising, what most people will do is go the sort of hand-built route, where you don't use a desktop environment, or you don't rely on it for most things, but you sort of configure things piece by piece yourself, which is kind of what I've done on my system here. I'll showcase that going forward. So the first thing, probably the most important part of your desktop experience, is your window manager. Usually with Rising, people will use something called the tiling window manager. Those of you familiar with Windows will know that you drag your windows around, and sometimes you can place them in corners and specific places. But with a tiling window manager, you do stuff like this. So all your windows are kind of configured to work with hotkeys, and they all work together in this grid fashion, where you can kind of customize the layouts just based on hotkeys. So like you'll see, this is my tall layout, where I can move the windows around like this, can throw them around between different monitors if I have those connected, can change the layouts, change the sizing of things. Yeah, so you can really customize it however you like. In particular, I'm using the window manager called Xmonad. It's a bit more of a niche one. There's some more popular ones like i3, Awesome, DWM. They all have different customization methods, pros and cons, but generally, if they're a tiling window manager, they sort of all do the same kind of thing. There's also the compositor. That's a little bit harder to see on my system, but this is for stuff like animations, special effects. So I only really use my compositor. You might see there's very subtly a little drop shadow behind my windows. That's the only thing I use it for. I'm using PyCom in particular, but PyCom's a newer version of Compton, and there's also like Xcomp Manager, which not that many people use. There's also the system tray. So that's basically on Windows, you'll know it as the little part of your taskbar at the bottom right, where it has like you're currently running background daemons, stuff like that. You can see mine at the top. It's only got one thing on it at the moment. It's like the flame shot screenshot utility. But let me actually pull up a screen key. And you can actually see my shortcuts as well on the bottom of the screen, if that shares. Okay, maybe not. Not following my screen anymore. I may have disconnected if it's not. So your system tray, so that's that little right thing on the bottom right of Windows that you're familiar with. On Linux, you can kind of put it wherever you want, so you can leave it out. You don't have to use it. There's also something that's quite important. Sort of on Windows, this is your start menu. On Linux, you have lots of options. In particular, I use Rofi. So your app launcher is basically the thing that you use to launch all your applications. I've got it set up with the hotkey, and then I can choose from my application list here. You can also extend it with other stuff. So like I got my emoji panel in here. I can run old commands. I've got my clipboard history, and then current windows I can also switch to from my app launcher. There's quite a few options here. Rofi is generally the most popular. I also have D menu set up at the top. You'll see there's that very thin bar at the top there where you can run custom commands through D menu. And then if you're on Wayland, sometimes you use a different launcher like Wofi or Fuzzle. Then there's also the bar. So I use Polybar at the top. That's this thing over here. It's sort of analogous to the Windows taskbar, but basically it's generally going to be fully customizable. You can put whatever you want on there. Like you can see, I've got my Wi-Fi connection, volume, CPU, RAM, GPU usage, and then date and time. And then I also keep track of my workspaces on the top left there. It's a little bit difficult to see maybe, but you can see when I switch to different workspaces, the number changes to indicate what workspace I'm currently on in Xmonad. Then there's also the notification daemon. So if I run stuff by, you'll see I can spawn notifications at the top there. That's using Dunstify, which is another utility. And the point I'm trying to get across here is that all of this stuff you can use, or you can use something else. You can configure it how you want, like literally total freedom. Okay, then also your terminal emulator, pretty important software. So that's basically the terminal that you can use to type commands and interact with the actual Linux system. So here I'm using Kitty. There's tons of options when it comes to terminal emulators. Alacrity is a good one. Xterm is also popular. There's cool retro term. Like, yeah, there's so many. And then there's also GUI toolkits, which are customizable. So in Linux, you have GTK, which is a very popular one. It's GNOME toolkit. So if you see, I launch my file explorer. This particular file explorer is Nautilus. It's using the GTK GUI toolkit. So all of these icons, the color theme, the text, the font, that's based on my GTK customization. So what's nice about customizing a toolkit is that it applies to all the applications which use that toolkit, generally speaking. There's also Qt, which is quite used by a lot of applications, WX widgets and FLTK, less commonly so, but yeah, so there. Okay, about my tiling window manager specifically, Xmonad. So the approach I generally take with my system is to try and keep things as declarative and functional as possible. I like having everything sort of purely defined in one place and minimal in a sense. So the reason Xmonad is a great choice for that is it's written entirely in Haskell and your configuration is entirely in Haskell. So basically all of the setup for the entire system is written in a programming language. You compile it, and then you basically have like this functional way to configure everything. So you'll see, like, I've got a few hotkeys set up for custom system buttons to change volume, move to the next song, etc. Yeah, these are my hotkeys. And yeah, there's tons of possibility there. In the interest of time, I'll skip ahead. There's also Polybar, which I mentioned. So Polybar's config looks a little bit different. It's basically an ini file where all of your customizations are just key value pairs, and you can customize it all as you like. You'll see, like, here's my battery icons, which are at the top there. So yeah, also fully customizable. And then this is something like an example of an i3 config, which should be another window manager, more popular one. And then, yeah, my system itself, NixOS. So this is also a fairly niche Linux distribution, but the power of it is that everything, your entire system is basically built on a unified set of config files, and everything is declarative and everything is reproducible. So it's sort of like programming your entire operating system. You'll see if I open my file explorer here, this particular folder I'm in is my dot files. So my entire system configuration is basically defined in these folders. So all my configs for specific applications in this config folder, and then my main system config are all these .nix files. So you'll see this particular configuration .nix. Like, these are the properties. You can kind of think of it like JSON, but with Lambda functions and like functional syntax. So everything's one big config that gets compiled into the system, and then the system matches the config exactly. And then all you do is you run one command which updates the system to match your configs. So yeah, that's a really neat way to do it. Would definitely recommend checking out NixOS if you want an awesome Linux distro. And then it also has extensions, stuff like Home Manager and Stylix. So Stylix allows me to customize a whole bunch of applications using one color theme all at once. And then Home Manager allows me to do like user level configs for specific applications. Another important thing with Rising is color and color themes. I like to use vscodethemes.com to check out some existing themes, get some inspiration from there. But yeah, you'll notice on my system, pretty much everything matches the color themes. And in particular, I'm using Capuchin with a red highlights override. And then, yeah, you can basically go to each application and customize it exactly how you want it in terms of color. So yeah, foundations of Unix sort of comes back to freedom. You can do sort of whatever you want, and you can make it exactly how you like it. So, like everything's pretty much open source. Everything's modular, interoperable, extensible, and you can be minimalist if you want to. Where to dive deeper, there's Unix Spawn I mentioned. ArchWiki is a great one for checking out general Linux stuff. There's also a rising guide available at this link, which is quite good. And then, yeah, these are my dot files available there. And then, yeah, in terms of browser customization, one thing I did forget to mention, there's also a browser extension for Chrome and Firefox. One's called Dark Reader. You might be familiar with that one, to basically allow you to set all your websites to override their CSS to use dark mode. There's also another one called Stylus, where you can individually customize the CSS for every single website and override the color themes. So you'll notice I use that quite extensively on my websites that I visit frequently. So this is GitHub. You'll notice it's rethemed to match my system. If I disable Stylus, you'll see the difference. So it goes to a much like more plain gray as opposed to the bluer with the red tint that I use. There's also the Hackage wiki, show you the glaring difference there. Customized Google as well. YouTube, also using a custom user style. And then Wikipedia as well, fully customized. And yeah, pretty much all the major websites I use can override with that. So yeah, I guess any questions?